Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the Insiders. I moved the furniture around because it's off week. New look here. And our guest this week is former Kansas State running back Mike Lawrence, a guy who was pretty darn good, but now he's an old man. He's older than Brien Hanley.
Yeah, I got jokes.
Mike, thanks for joining us. Give everyone an update on what's up in your life, where you live, and all that good stuff.
Oh, man, I'm currently in Tampa, Florida, coaching and watching my daughter get ready to go to college. They grow up so fast. So, but I'm here just working.
Where are you coaching
with kids? Tampa Catholic High School. It's a good high school, one of the top high schools in the area and stuff like that. Been a rough year, but, we're getting back on track with things.
So, a lot of ex-players down in Tampa, don't we? Left over from the
we do
recruiting.
Yeah, we got a lot of them that's down this way. Actually, Coach Levitt's down here.
Yeah. Hope the guy stayed out of trouble. I love Coach
That
Levitt.
he is. Yeah.
One of my best memories is when I was just getting started kind of in this business. K-State basketball was playing in Orlando in the NCAA tournament. And I went over to Tampa and sat in the trailer that was the original place where South Florida football was born. They didn't even know football at the time, and chatted to him about that. I'm glad to see South Florida's winning again, because getting rid of him was a big mistake. That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, that it is. But
yep. Gentlemen, K-State wins 41-28, a breath of fresh air in a season that's been kind of stinky. Big B, let's start with you. That was the most complete performance, far from 100%. They gave up too many explosive plays. They had an empty first quarter where drive stalled out. But by the end of the game, I thought that team was playing some pretty good football. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought so too. The thing about it is that, when you play better competition, and I'm not saying TCU's at the top of the food chain in the Big 12, but it is good competition. It's hard to you're not going to score on every drive. You're not going to keep them out of the end zone. That's just not reality, especially the way that football is played these days. But I thought it was absolutely a complete performance by K-State. Look, those last two touchdowns, yes, they count. I understand all that, but we're up 3 scores. I mean, it's window dressing. We're up 21 points, and then they get along. Well, now, granted, you shouldn't have that happen. I don't know what kind of defense we're in where we're letting guys one-on-one run past us up 3 touchdowns. I mean, we all hate the prevent defense, but if there's ever been a call for prevent defense, I think that would classify or qualify to be an opportunity to do it. Having said that, I just thought the guys played well. Their backs were against the wall. It's a game they had to have if they wanted to salvage any type of a season. I think it was going south on them quick, and they decided they didn't want their season to go south. So I commend them.
I agree. Mike Lawrence, what did you think of the game?
I think one of the biggest things is like what Brian just said. It was a game that they had to have. So, with their backs against the wall, they had to make plays. I think it was no way they were not going to win that game, So they had to, on all aspects of the game, they had to step up, and they finished like they need to, and like Brian just said, he don't know what defense they were playing. That's called complacency.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the game, of where they just they complacent, they good with where they are. They understood that they were going to win the game, but you still have to finish the game off strong with letting them know that this is where we are now. We're moving forward, and we're looking to get better each and every time, because as you elegantly put it, starting to show off, they look pretty bad at the beginning, but I think it's also a lot of the changes that's going in, that's at the program, as far as, who's going to be playing from week to week and having people that's there, that's healthy. So that has a big thing to going through all that. But they did well. It was good. It was a good victory for them, and they finished on the high note. And now it's on to the next one. You have to have consistency in order to get back to where they once were.
Next one comes in 2 Saturdays. It's kind of a big one. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But we do know this. KU, K-State, and Lawrence will kick off at 11 a.m. and be on TNT. Been a long time since been on that platform. Ryan Gilbert, I haven't talked to you since the end of the game. Worked out well for you. Give me your thoughts now that you've had some more time to digest what we saw at the stadium.
Well, when we were talking up in the press box at the game, later on in the game when K-State was building its lead, you said this looks like K-State football, and that's something that really stuck with me. Just generating turnovers and not even giving our offense a chance to convert them into points, but putting them on, putting points on the board as a defense, right? That's the splash plays that K-State football is all about. I think if you go back to the Baylor game, Kansas State's offense probably played better, but that's not the type of football game that this Kansas State team or most Kansas State teams want to be in, right? It's the Big 12. Yeah, you got to put up points, and shootouts are fun, but your defense is scoring touchdowns and you're playing complementary football. That's K-State football. That's the way that this team is, maybe built to win. I understand the offense has firepower, but when K-State's defense got those turnovers in Waco, offense couldn't do anything with them. So this was just more of a clean and crisp game. You saw maybe more of the potential and the ceiling in Waco, but in Manhattan on Saturday, that is the blueprint to win from here on out. Maybe Texas Tech, you might need some of that spark, but that was K-State football on Saturday. It really was.
Yeah, those late 2 touchdowns were troubling. This defense has to figure out explosives, whether it's in early in the game, and they did a better job, Brian, but lucky that wasn't a closer game. Luckily, the offense picked up pace and gave them a little cushion there. But something we saw from this team that we really haven't seen with any consistency all season long, outside of a big run here and there, was kind of a reliable running game with Dylan Edwards out, Joe Jackson in, carried the ball 27 times for 110 yards. Not great averages for the team, about 3.5 yards a carry. He was about 4.1, but it was a productive running game. It kept moving the field. So I think that's something they can lean on, and it certainly helped them eat up clock, control the ball, and pick up first downs in that second half.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I kind of wrote on as far as, and you'll see it tomorrow on GoPowercat, is basically they trusted the offensive line. The week before against Baylor, I don't feel like they trusted them to go win the game when they had an opportunity to allow them to win the game when they were playing good. But it's also trust is a thing that has to be earned. And early in the season, you couldn't rely on the offensive line. You literally couldn't. But we've been able to do that over the last couple of weeks. I would say the last 3 weeks, the line has really turned this thing around and has figured some things out. Again, the yards per carry wasn't great, but Kansas State was able to run the ball. And I always say 2 things: run it when you want to and when you need to. They were able to do both, and that's the difference in what this offensive line is bringing to the table these days. I thought they played well. The run game was well. Joe Jackson, 27 carries. Some people said, well, you can't give it to him 27 times. I'm like, well, we did. I go, now, maybe we don't want to give it to him 37 times. I understand. I go, but if we got to give it to him 27 times, maybe you want to get some other people involved. But I thought the run game was fine. I was very impressed with what they did in the run game. Again, the offensive line did their thing for the 3rd week in a row. And I think the coaches have to kind of lean into that. Because, again, we're going to play an opponent that is allergic to tackling running backs and just loves giving up 200-yard rushing games. So, I mean, might as well lean into that. I'm just saying.
All for it. Mike, I tell you what, having you two on here is perfect tonight, because I've listened to Big B lose his mind over bad offensive line play, and I bet he's frustrated by the running backs all season.
Well, the big thing is Brian, he'll tell you, one of the things is if you don't have a running game, you will not pretty much win ball games. No. You have to have a good balance. You know, I hate to do this, but I will say this. When Brian and I played, guess what we focus on? That damn the run game is what we had, whether it was the quarterback run game or if it was me and Eric run game, we focus on making sure our run game was complementary to our passing game. You know, the big thing is that Avery ran when he needed to. You know what I'm saying? They utilized him when he really needed to. I mean, he made some plays, you know, the 4th and 1s, and they had a couple there where he had to run that ball in order for them to be to keep the play going on, you know, to keep the drive going. But with not having a run game and, you know, me being a running back, of course, our biggest thing is you have to make sure that it's a balance. You know, one of them, I mean, we more focus on the run game because Brian can tell you that's what we emphasize, you know, because we knew we could throw the ball if need be, but we wanted to run the ball. You look at any game that Brian and I played in, we ran the ball, and that's what they have to get back to really focusing. And it's not, you know, I know Dylan's not in there, but the other running backs, because, you know, we had me, we had Andre Anderson, we had Marlon Charles, we had backs that was in there, and we couldn't take whoever was in there had to produce. And that's what makes a difference. So those backs that's in there, you know, the running back that had 27 carries, that's what they relied upon him to do this week. So he needed to get that done. So it's just huge for you to always have a running game. So yeah, like Brian said, we got to lean on that and keep it moving.
Looking back when you played, I didn't realize how incredible it was, the balance you and Eric Hickson brought to the field. It didn't matter who was in. You guys just took care of business. It was literally number 1 and number 1A.
Yeah.
You just don't see that very often. It was a really unique circumstance. And I never remember thinking, oh no, this dude's on the field and he doesn't do that as well as the other dude.
No.
I don't remember ever once thinking that, because you guys just got it done in all areas.
Well, I think it was more so the fact of, you know, one of the things that we all did. And I mean, Brian, to tell you, it's we competed. We wanted to, hey, listen, you may be starting, but damn it, we gonna see who have more yards this game. And that was that's how we went into game. Like Brian he'll tell you, hey, I'm knocking somebody's on their ass today. And that was what the offensive linemen them did. They were dirty. And our whole thing in the backfield was we wanted to compete. And our goal each game, me and Eric, our goal each game was we will run for 100 yards. That was the goal. The goal was 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. If we had that, we won in the ball games. That's just what we put on ourselves. And as you said, Tim, you know, there was no change. But that was also complimentary because we always supported and pushed each other. You know, we weren't trying to be, well, you know, I want the ball. No, when I got the ball, I had to make sure that we did something with it. But, of course, you know, you got Brian, you got Kendall Jaycox, you got Todd Weiner, you got these horses up front, and they will tell you, let's run the ball. Piss on all the passing and all the throwing. Let's run the ball. Let's run the ball. And that's what we did. So it was always.
First of all, I just want to clean something up real quick. I feel like I was slandered. I wasn't dirty at all. Okay. I wasn't dirty. I wasn't dirty at all. I didn't hit anybody late. I didn't go at anybody's knee. I didn't do any of those things. I just block a guy and that's it. That's it. That's all I did. Every play.
So let me rephrase
right
that.
Before the whistle, too.
Let me rephrase that. Our O-lineman got it done. How about that?
There you go.
Big B, I will pay you to take out Brian Gilbert's knee next time you see him. That's a whole different thing, though.
Maybe you'll see me in Dallas a couple weekends. See.
Gills, I asked Chris Kleiman, or maybe it was, I can't remember, maybe it was the coordinators, about less rotation of players, particularly along that offensive line. And they did it again, and their reasoning is, well, we're pretty beaten up. I hope they're watching that yeah, they're beaten up. They're playing some guys that weren't playing very much at the start of the year, and they're better. And maybe they're better because they're hungry. They earned this time, but also that constant rotation of an offensive line doesn't work. You can't do that. Big B said it many times. You got to settle in and get to going as a group of five. But I thought the offensive line did a pretty good job with some younger guys or guys that have played less.
Yeah, the running backs, I guess the overall offense as a whole without Dylan Edwards was not good, against Arizona, Army, North Dakota, wasn't good. And you saw it against UCF, just the difference that Dylan Edwards made. And when he is sidelined here on Saturday against TCU, you're just thinking, oh goodness, like the offense is not going to it's not going to have that same oomph to it. And boy, Joe Jackson wasn't, a superstar, but Joe Jackson handled business, and offensive line, of course, like you guys have said, yeah, I mean, that deserves all the credit in the world for that happening. So that gives you a ton of confidence moving forward. Edwards doesn't play a single snap the rest of the year. K-State's offense was able to do that without Dylan Edwards. UCF, they looked great. Well, I think K-State can maybe replicate that moving forward. I know the offense, let's not kid ourselves, guys. The offense wasn't tremendous against TCU. The defense put up a couple scores, but the offense really didn't have any plays where it shot itself in the foot. Matt Wells, guys, Fitz, I don't think there were any times where me and Cole and we all looked at each other and said, what the hell was that, right?
Yeah.
Overall, the offense was clean and crisp, and that goes back to what I said earlier about it being Kansas State football.
I agree. And yeah, the defense, boy, when your defense scores 14 points, that helps an awful lot, particularly when you win by 13. I can do math. But I thought Wells, Big B, settled in. I thought that was one of his better sequencing of the season and throwing when it was appropriate and running when it was appropriate, but also keeping the defense on its heels so they didn't really know what was going on. I thought that was the most put together the offense looked, even if it wasn't the most explosive.
Yeah, it seemed like, the previous game and several games, it just kind of looked like he was calling plays to call plays and wasn't really setting stuff up. Well, he did that against TCU. And now maybe he's doing that all the time, but it just didn't appear to be that way. But it looked like against TCU, there were plays that were called with a purpose and setting things up and opportunities to have trickery within the offense. I still think there's more. I still think there's a ton more that can be unlocked with this offense if we choose to do that. But you're right, Fitz. It just looked like one of those games where, okay, he settled in and kept TCU on their heels, which in previous games, it seemed like he was always reacting to what happened versus, whatever happens, I got a plan. And I'm not saying he didn't have a plan before, but the play calling just didn't appear to seem like he had a plan. It seemed like, okay, I'm just going to react to what's happening, where here it just didn't seem that was the case. It seemed like I got a plan. Whatever happens, I got something for it. And you need that moving forward. You can't be reactive as a play caller, no matter if it's 1st and 10 and it goes to 2nd and 11. You got to have something for it. Or if it's 2nd and 4, you got to have something for that too. So I think it was more of a game to where he just kind of understood and got out ahead of himself and said, no, this is what we're going to do. Regardless of the situation, I got it handled. And it just looked like he wasn't being reactive this week.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. They ran the ball 45 times, threw it 26. 2 of those runs were sacks. I hate that they count those as runs in college football. So that cut away some of that. Yardage for Avery, who carried the ball 13 times, 11 rushes actually, and only for 29 yards. 13 of it went down as lost yardage. But yeah, Mike, they seem to sequence so much better in this game. It looked like it had some rhythm to it, although the first quarter they kept petering out. They'd get into TCU territory and just kind of lose their way a little bit. I thought it was that type of first quarter would have derailed this team earlier in the season. Would have just totally put them off their game, but they persisted and got it going and finally looked like an offense that is trying to form an identity. Granted, we're more than halfway through the season, but that's a good sign.
I mean, every offense wants to find their identity. One of the things is what Brian said, you know, it's like play calling. I'm going to use myself for an example. You know, as an offensive coordinator, when you're going into a game, you do have to have a game plan. Your biggest thing is what do you want to focus on doing within that game, right? So this past game, they were more focused on the run than they were throwing the ball, and they wanted to use Avery sparingly to make sure that honestly really need to. Because if you watch him throwing the ball and everything else, they were off kilter a little bit when they got to the passing game. So, you know, for that tells me as an OC, you know, that it was a little rough in practice based on what we were going to play, you know, what passes we were going to add to the element of our game for that. So, as you just said, they had 26 rushes versus 40 or 26 passes versus 40-something run, you know, almost balanced. But at the same time, you know, the big thing is understanding what your offense is, because one of the things is not week to week. You want to now initially put in a whole new set of plays versus what you already have in your game plan and using different formations to get matchups. Because that's the biggest thing. Brian will tell you, when we go into games, it's about the matchup that you have in order for that offense to be successful. So, like, you go back to the other games, the Baylor game, well, what was the matchup? They didn't match up well, right? So, therefore, the outcome was different. This week, you know, they knew that they had to run the ball as we go back to that, and that was their emphasis for them to have success and win the ball game.
Ron Gilbert, I don't know if you noticed this, but I'm old. I know it surprises you, but I like old school football. Like what Army did to K-State was just beautiful football. Frustrating to watch from a K-State perspective, but establishing the line of scrimmage and just beating you man to man, just up front. I'm going to beat you on this possession every play. It was beautiful, and I thought K-State got to that. I thought they did kind of set a tempo and say, we're going to run the ball and we're going to control this clock and win the game in the fourth quarter by not letting you have the ball. I loved it. It was awesome.
Can you guys believe TCU had one loss heading into this game?
Yeah, they didn't look good.
TCU played like a team with one win.
Yeah, I wouldn't believe that they only had one.
The heart and the effort, right? Those were kind of the K-State issues early on in this season, and now it gets kind of flip-flopped. But overall, man, special teams. I do say this was a K-State football game. We can't forget about the special teams. Now, I guess there weren't any blunders per se, but you're still waiting on that splash play. You're still waiting on another return. I know Nornberg has been out, but you're still waiting on that. So step in the right direction. I say it is a K-State football game, like you said, Fitz. Correct. But if you really want to truly get back to K-State football, non-offensive scores are the way to go. Your defense getting those are great. Now let's see it from special teams.
I'm going to jump in there. It's funny that you say that because, you know, in all the games that we had, and if we go back old school, we thrived on special teams. I'm actually a special teams coordinator right now.
There you go.
Where I always game plan what we have to make a play. Like, I don't think they emphasize enough in order to make plays on the special teams. You got to steal momentum on one aspect of that game, whether it's punting, kickoff, something. You know, the game is a little bit different because if you win in the special teams, you know, without always having the offense and the defensive side, you most of the time end up winning those games because of big plays, as you said, Ryan, in the special teams game. And you don't, I mean, like you said it very well. There's no big splash. You don't see anything, but you also not creating it. You get what I'm saying? You have to also create those things on special teams for you to be able to have those moments.
Thank goodness for Luis Rodriguez. He's been a godsend this season. The block at Baylor's is only miss in the year. You can just, when he comes on the field, you can count on points. That's been the bright spot for special teams. Big B, but let's get into that a little bit. At least they've stabilized. You know what I mean? At least they're not doing dumb crap every game.
Yeah,
the first 4 games, they lost a possession every game with a muff or something.
That's
losing my mind watching this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that they're not really doing anything special, but they're not costing themselves anything. And that's the key. Now, granted, special teams, at some point you'd like to see them do something a little bit special. And I know we have a return, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that hadn't happened, but that seemed to be the anomaly. You know, at some point we got to get back to being a special unit. You know, it seems like on punt returns, it's like, okay, can we just catch it? You know, just catch the football, you know, and not just gain any yards or lose any yards. Let's just catch it first, which before it was an absolute weapon, and we've gotten away from that. I think K-State's got to start to try to lean into that. I don't know why we don't. And maybe it's not emphasized, and maybe it's not something that we're capable of doing. Okay, I'm fine with that, as long as we're not costing ourselves anything.
It's not emphasized, Brian.
Yeah.
You know that, because when you emphasize that game, when you emphasize it, something happens on one of those special teams. It doesn't matter which one. Something will happen because you're focusing on that and emphasizing that. Well, we know based on this, this week it was focusing on getting that run game together. Of course, they had some big plays, in the passing game as well, but that was the emphasis,
Yeah, at some point, like you said, I mean, you got to emphasize special teams, because the good teams that do, you see things happen. Mm-hmm. And I've said it before, and maybe the number, I don't want to give excuses, because that's all it is an excuse. Get the guys, your best guys out there that you can afford to get out there on special teams. I'm not saying they all have to be frontline guys. That would be a mistake. But they don't all have to be into the roster guys that you're just putting out there so you can say, hey, this guy got to run down on a kickoff. Now, it doesn't have to be that. This guy got to be on the punt block team. Well, it doesn't have to be that. And I'm not saying that's all that it is, but it appears to be. Like, you get some more frontline guys out there. We used to see that. And again, I don't want to go back to the old days, but you just look at other good football teams. Forget the old days. Just look at other good football teams around the country. They have frontline guys on kickoff return, punt return. It isn't just all these other guys that maybe they're not in the top 44 and and they just allow them to run down on something. That's not what's out there. They have frontline guys out there. K-State's got to start doing that.
I agree. And you know what? I think K-State has had an incredible run of returners, because it takes, you guys know this, it takes this mix of athleticism, just that sense to feel space around you and get to the gaps, confidence, and sheer insanity, to stand back there to catch a punt and they're coming, but you're looking at the ball. I think finding those guys has been hard, and one of the things maybe we overlook about what Bill Snyder did was he had a sense for finding that dude on the roster, whether it was a defensive back, Chris Canty, or DJ Reed, or a receiver or running back. He always found that guy that could mix it. Nobody was as good as David Allen at it ever, but those guys are special. And finding that guy, I just don't think that guy's on this team. Dylan Edwards might be that guy if you can count on him to catch the ball, which was exactly how we got to this whole problem with Dylan Edwards this season. But I just think it's interesting, but I do think you're right. I don't think it's just as important to this staff. I just don't think it's emphasized. It was the third element of the game to Bill Snyder. It didn't take a backseat to offense or defense.
No, because Brian said it. Like I was on special team. Right. I remember blocking balls. Every running back that was there, from Eric Hickson to Andre Anderson, Chris. I mean, all of us. We were on special teams. And as you said, David Allen, that was, I mean, the special guy of them all. But all our guys, I mean, all those guys was on special teams for some point, some reason. And it was emphasized every single game that we had. We had to make a play on special teams.
Let's flip it over and talk about defense now, guys. Until the fourth quarter happened, there was a really good day at the office for the defense. TCU has been an explosive offense, and honestly, holding them to 4 touchdowns, 28 points is pretty good effort from what TCU's done this season. They gave him, Josh Hoover, some different looks. It confused him a little bit. He was off. I just think he had a bad day. But Gills, they showed some promise up until they gave up the 2 explosive plays in the fourth quarter where I think they let their guard down. To string plays together and get teams off the field on 3rd and 4th down. They were really good on 3rd and 4th down in this game. On 3rd down, I guess TCU ended up 6-13. They picked up some late, then 1 on 4 on 4th down. That's about as good as they've been this year.
Big B, what's your go-to saying, or one of your go-to sayings? Your best players have to play like your best players. And coming into the year, Des Purnell was a top 5 guy, certainly on defense. Through the first, let's call it 5 games, has not been, Des Purnell was not one of K-State's better linebackers.
We're bad.
As of late, he has ticked it up a notch, and he's ticked it up a number of notches on this defense. And, Gunnar Maldonado, his snap count against TCU was his highest of the year. Heading into the year, we thought Gunnar Maldonado was going to be a difference maker, and you kind of forget about him with his injury, and he just wasn't on the field much. Well, those are, I don't want to say they're K-State's best players, but we thought they were going to be prominent playmakers on the defense. We didn't see that early on, and now you're simply seeing that more. So, yeah, Fitz, later in the game, Big B, you mentioned it as well. Those big plays, I mean, the big plays need to be eradicated, right? It's like a little virus. It's just creeping, hanging around, and finding its way out. But you gotta give radiation or chemo on those big plays, right, Fitz, and just get rid of those things altogether.
Yep. Big B, defensive thoughts.
I mean, I think the defense, look, you guys are harder on them than I am because I get it. You're up 3 scores. The game is basically over. Now, it's not over, but you're going to win the game, and you gave up a big play. Again, I don't know what the defense is called, but it looked like we were kind of in man coverage, weren't in quarters. We weren't in cover 2, and you just let a guy run right by you. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But so you're up 3 scores. I'm like, all you want to do, keep everything in front of you, make them go down the field as slow as possible, play people deep. That wasn't what K-State was doing. So, and then you're challenging one of the better receivers in the Big 12 one-on-one. That's just not smart. So having said all of that, I think the defense did a good job. I give them a good day. Again, the other score at the end of the game, I mean, what was there, 36 seconds left in the game? So I just – I get it. I totally get it. And you do have to get rid of the big plays. You absolutely have to do that. The one thing that I will say, guys, I don't want to be so long-winded.
That's right.
Is that TCU went away from the run game. TCU had an opportunity to stick with the run game. And because their coaches, I'll just say this, their coaches are stupid. They decided, you know what? I know the run game is really working. We're going to go away from it just because we want to throw the football. And K-State, it almost seemed like K-State was giving them the run, saying, I bet you won't keep running it. I bet you won't keep running it. And they didn't. Sure enough, they did not, because they were running the football. They were running very successfully. I mean, Barnes was averaging 7.1 yards a carry, and it didn't look like K-State was that interested in tackling him, to be quite honest with you. And they just stopped running the football. I still believe we've got work to do when it comes to stopping the run, because we didn't stop them. TCU stopped themselves. I thought it was a good game plan as far as against the pass, just confusing what Hoover was trying to do. But, yeah, I just think they went away from the run. I still think K-State's got problems with it, and we got to get it fixed because KU will try to run it.
I agree. For me, it was, again, those defensive ends at defensive tackle.
Yeah.
They consistently got bent back or buried, just
Correct.
Pushed inside and open up huge holes. And then it's up to the linebackers to come up and make a play. Or thank goodness Gunnar Maldonado actually is a very good tackler. You get him in space and a lot of safeties. We've seen BJ Payne, whiff on him. Gunnar got him down. So I think TCU had some opportunities for some long runs that the safeties cleaned up. Mike, give me your overall thoughts, though, on this Kansas State defense, where it's been and where it was on Saturday.
Well, this week, I mean, I'm going to go off of what Brian said. I mean, my man knows some ball, because honestly, if you look when the score was 7-14, they were running the ball down their throats. Then they started throwing the ball when, of course, a couple of drops by their receivers. If they would have kept running the ball, I think it would have been a long day for K-State, honestly, just because of what that running back was averaging during that period of time. And as well as they were playing, the defense was game planning for their passing game. I don't think they were more focused on the running game, and that's where they were gutting them and making big plays. One thing I will say about defense, with them doing as well as they did and everything else, because at the end of the day, they did their job. They stopped them from scoring more points in order to help K-State win. But Brian, what would have happened if we would have thrown the damn football in the stands?
Yeah. Yeah, that'd have been a problem.
I mean, what?
That would have been a big problem. The first thing, though, Mike, if somebody would have thrown the ball into the
doing nonsense.
Well, if somebody would have thrown the ball into the stands, nobody would have went to celebrate with him. Nobody would have went over there. Everybody would have said, "Okay, that's on you, man. I don't want no part of that." I can guarantee you that, man. I guarantee you that.
Sorry, guys, I just checked. K-State gave up 160 yards in that fourth quarter. 448 for the game, but 160 if it was in the fourth quarter. But, yeah, Wesley, you know what? If I had to bet on someone to do that, Wesley Fair might have been at the bottom of my list. He's a kid that just does everything right. And I bet you Chris Kleiman was just astonished it was him that did that. Just amazing. Look, it's been not a good year.
They played well.
But that was better. That was better. And as you can attest, TCU receivers did drop some passes. I'm sorry that didn't work out well for a parlay, but it was good for K-State.
Well, some of those, Jack got injured, and his drops didn't help, but he was not on the field for most of the game. But wasn't that funny? Wesley Fair we interviewed him after the game, and he happened to be the first guy in while Kleiman was still speaking. And Kleiman just gave him a look as he answered a question about it. And Wesley was like, "Yeah, I know. I messed up."
They're lucky that didn't end up costing them anything, because that was horrible. But I do want to say this. Des Purnell is one of my favorite young men on this team. He's just a great guy. And a leader. He demands a lot. And I think one of the problems for this team has been that he hasn't been playing well. So probably his credibility and his eagerness to be a vocal leader was tamped down a little bit, because when you're not playing well, it's hard to yell at other people. That was a big breakthrough for him, and I think the defense to have him back, Big B. That dude can make plays, and he's been a little bit lost in this 2 linebacker thing. He's just not as good in this position as he was as a third linebacker, true outside linebacker.
Yeah. I mean, look, he made some plays. You're right. He kind of got lost in the shuffle of what K-State's trying to do. And we've talked about it personnel-wise, why they did it. I understand why they did it, but when you move certain people around, guys that are successful, I mean, everybody just can't do everything, and I know we like to think, hey, it's not that big a deal. I'm like, sometimes it is that big a deal, man, especially when you're used to constantly being kind of out in space, and then you're no longer out in space. The linemen get bigger inside, they get nastier inside. They get dirtier, as Mike likes to say. Unbelievable that he would say that about somebody like that. I don't know why he would do that. But, it just looks different from that perspective, the linebacker's perspective. It looks different, and maybe it takes some time to get used to. Practice is one thing. Games are way different. especially against people that you don't know what they're going to do. So it can take a little while to get used to. I think that's kind of what we saw. And maybe he just thought, you know what? I've done this for a while. I've been pretty good at this. It'll just come naturally to me. Well, it did not. And that's okay.
Yep.
But I think it's starting. I think it's starting to slow down and it's starting to click.
Okay, let's turn our attention to the next game. Of course, they're off on
Game's a lot
Saturday.
faster.
What's that?
No, I was just going off of what Brian said. The game's a lot faster. So therefore, I mean, your thought process, it has to move a lot faster than what it is doing practice. You want to play fast in practice, but the big thing is when you're on the field, the processing of what you're seeing in front of you have to be faster. That's all.
And he was reacting. He was playing some defense. KU awaits in 2 weeks. As I said, 11 a.m. kick in Lawrence on TNT, also on True TV and HBO Max or whatever it is now. They keep changing the name. It's an interesting game. Both teams have their deficiencies. Both teams can score. Both teams can give up points. But Mike, it's KU. K-State's won 16 straight. This one's different. And this one's scary. K's come close 2 years in a row. At home in their new stadium, they feel like they're going to get K-State. Your thoughts on this series?
Man, I must say I've never lost to KU. So, and me personally, I must say I had some big games against KU. So, I honestly can remember the last one going for 127 and a tut. And I think the big thing is them understanding and the players understanding what this means, far as the tradition of what we do and how we play this game when it comes to this. One of the things I remember when we played at home, both Eric Hickson and myself rushed for over 100 yards that game. But that's the thought process of what we had. Like I told you, it was always competition. This is one game you don't want to go into second guessing and be worrying about how you're going to play. You want to go into this game understanding and know it's 16, we're going to make that 17. And just really be focused on what needs to happen and have no doubt in that. Because this series over the last 16 years, we know how close they've come a couple of times, but at the same time, we know that this team does not want to be the team that breaks that. They don't want that because they will be remembered more than any team if that was to happen, which we know they're going to go out and play big and do good things. So we're going to keep the tradition going, make it 17.
Absolutely.
Let's claim it right now.
Ryan Gilbert, it's been close. One of the things Lance Leipold has done, and it's the hardest thing a coach coming into a program that has struggled has to do, and that's change the culture and the belief that you're going to win. They've come into those 2 games last 2 years thinking they're going to win, and they played well enough to win. But as Mike said, the game comes down. One team thought, we always win. We're going to win this game. And it's paid off. But, boy, this one scares me. I think they've been targeting this game for 3 years now in a row, and they might have the dudes and the matchups to get it done. Give me your thoughts.
I'm in kind of a conundrum here.
That's a good word.
Really, all throughout most of the season, especially in the offseason, I was saying that this is the year where the bubble bursts. Either KU gets over the hump and wins, or K-State just blows them out. And last year, guys, let's be real. Kansas State was very fortunate to win that game in the fourth quarter thanks to a long kick from Chris Tennant. 2023 in Lawrence was not a pretty game. You can't keep just squeaking by KU. So up until about 2 days ago, it was pretty easy to say, yeah, this is the year for KU. But after the results of Saturday, not just Kansas State looking good, but boy, KU, like you mentioned, some of the defensive flaws that team has. I mean, Kansas State now, I think just K-State fans in general can take a nice sigh of just take a step back, take a breath. There is a real tangible hope and chance that K-State can win this game. But guys, like the streak matters. I mean, Big B, when's the last time the Steelers lost a regular season home game? Did you see that graphic they showed against the Browns? Like Kansas State has been 22 years, and they play every year in Acrisure Stadium. So those things matter. I mean, those things really do matter. The program, I know this, the walk-on and your Kansas kids have kind of been cut back a little bit due to the changes from the NCAA, but you've still got a locker room that knows the importance of the rivalry. And yeah, you lost your Austin Moores of the world and some other guys that really, really grasp it, but you still have got a number of players. Avery is a prime example as a Kansas guy that just knows the importance of this game. That history just means so much, and that's why my early initial thoughts lean K-State.
Big B, what was it about? How did Coach Snyder do this? How did he convince look, there's a lot of Kansas guys on the roster. There's an urgency there for them. But both of you guys from out of state, but he seemed to sell everyone in that locker room on the importance of beating those guys.
Look, for me, it wasn't that hard, I'll be honest, because I grew up around football. And I grew up in a rivalry. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm still a diehard Louisville fan. And I hate Kentucky. So for me, going to the school and, Kansas is your rival? Okay, I'm going to hate Kansas. It was just easy for me to not like it. Now, we could get into their fans are obnoxious and we could get into all this stuff that just is kind of the cherry on top of all of that. But for me, he didn't have to do a whole lot of convincing because the constant, look, we go to a club in Topeka, you'd see KU football players there and they're acting like they're this and that. And I'm like, you suck. Like, what are you talking about? And then you go into the game and then you're literally, I'm like, you remember in July when you were talking all that, blah, 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 blah. You remember that? Here, take this. Take some more of this. Take some more of this. So for me, and for a lot of people, it wasn't that hard to not like them because they acted like they were God's gift to football and they were absolute hot. Now, at the time, again, things have changed, but at the time, they were absolute hot garbage. And Coach Snyder didn't like them. He never wanted us to lose to them. It's kind of like, look, don't let them even have an opportunity to think that they're better than we are. And that's the difference. If we could beat them 100-0, I think Coach Snyder would have beat them 100-0. Now, he would act like he didn't want to do that. But if we could have beat them 100-0, we'd have beat them 100-0. That's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
Mike, I don't even know what to say after that, Big B. That was if that was art, hang it on the wall because that was beautiful.
You suck.
I mean, they did. I'm just like, you're absolute trash, and you're acting like you're going to win the national championship, and you'll be lucky to win 2 games. And well, okay, here we are, and then we get into the game. You remember that? Oh, I never said that. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. Here, take some more. Take some more. Here.
I'm going to skip over asking what club in Topeka you were at.
Yeah, we don't need to do that.
Mike, give me some final thoughts on this team, where the program's at, and those kind of stuff. That kind of stuff.
I think in every season that we have, there's a learning lesson of what needs to be done, what needs to happen. And, we look at it as fans now because we're no longer players. So now we tend to critique it more and look at it differently. I think with me coaching in high school and all this other stuff, I think one of the things that we tend to forget that, their bond is different. They understand what they need to do. This step of them winning was in the right direction. So they have to build off of this to continue that momentum in order for them to get back where they was. Because if we look at I'll use, Florida, for instance. You remember what happened in Florida last year. They was getting ran through. And then all of a sudden, flipped the switch, and they won all the games after that. And I think K-State has that opportunity to be able to do that. They just have to stay consistent and stay true to what they're trying to accomplish. You know, I mean, Brian and I can contest to where, you know, we got our butts kicked by Nebraska, and then the next thing is we had to go out and we had to flip that switch back on and say it's on to the next game. And that's the biggest thing. Ups and downs are going to happen, but it's what you do when your back is truly against the wall. What type of player you're going to be? What are you going to do? You personally, meaning you yourself. Like we're individually, I tell my players, and we think like this: you have to do your job first. If you do your job, everybody does their job. We stay consistent. We find success. That's the biggest thing is, and they'll get there. I mean, it's rough patches that happen, but it's a learning moment for them, and they're building off of that in order for them to be successful. So they just got to keep focusing on that and take this game as a stepping stone of them moving forward.
Absolutely. And the mathematics is this: you beat KU, you're 4-4 on the season. It kind of changes, maybe how people think of the season. I know people were disappointed at a 6-6 season, but I'm telling you, getting to a bowl is always better than not getting to a bowl for the program and for your kind of mental health of your fan base.
Yeah,
Mike?
They got the opportunity to do that. I think so. And look, this KU game's going to be tough. I didn't mean to cut you off, Fitz.
No, go ahead.
The KU game's going to be tough, but you know, the parameters to beat them, like the formula to beat them, isn't that difficult, to be quite honest with you. I know we'll get into all of that stuff when time to get into it, but the formula isn't that difficult. Doing it is going to be difficult, but figuring out how to win this game, it really isn't. It's there all for the taking. The guys just got to go and do it.
Execution.
Yep,
We've
absolutely.
got next week to break down KU, but my final thought real quick would be Chris Kleiman, his message just to his team and the media and all that was Iowa State game is big, but there's a long season ahead, win or lose. You got to lock in. And I've said this before. I don't think there was enough importance just placed on that actual game itself. Now, I don't know the exact buttons that Kleiman needs to push with his team, but there needs to be a true sense of urgency for this game. You know, this game, Mike and Big B, you can attest to this. This is more than just a regular season football game.
Absolutely.
100%.
Thanks, gentlemen. A lot of fun. We will have a PowerCat podcast tomorrow. I think it'll drop on Wednesday. And, of course, if you want to watch the Big 12 Insiders, Big B and I will take a look at the week that was and the week ahead and all that good stuff on the Big 12 Insiders tomorrow. We appreciate everyone watching. Mike, thank you so much. We'll have you back again.
Appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I appreciate it. And we'll be back later in the week. But no pregame podcast. Why? Because there's no damn game to preview. Talk to you later, everyone.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.